In this video, I want to talk about something that to me is probably my biggest struggle when it comes to bass fishing, and that is slowing down. I think for a lot of us anglers, there are things that come to us naturally, and there are also things that we have to be extremely intentional about. And slowing down is something that I have to be very intentional about. Now, there are a couple of big times throughout the year where I really feel like slowing down can catch you way more bass, and in this video I want to talk about those situations. Now, before we get into the video, this one's brought to you by my apparel company, Fin Fishing. Guys, I know that I'm out of stock in a lot of my sun shirts right now, but some stock is coming. But I am still running a deal right now for the end of, well, really for the next couple of days. If you buy a USA made sun shirt, you actually get a free tri-blend t-shirt. It is a very comfortable t-shirt, one of the most comfortable ones I've ever wore in my life. And right now it is free with the purchase of a sun shirt. So I'm gonna leave a link down below in the description. Shopping at Fin is truly the best way to help support this channel, and I greatly appreciate it. All right, let's talk about slowing down. This is something that it seems like every year I have to learn this lesson the hard way. And I hate that, but I guess at the same time, it is what makes fishing so great. It's what keeps you going out there. But there are so many times out there on the water where simply slowing down, fishing slower can really, really help you. And I want to talk about a few of those big reasons right now. The first one is, to me, going to be the most obvious. And that is actually when you aren't catching fish. When you are out there and it seems like maybe you've hit several good areas and you're just not catching a lot of fish. Sometimes I feel like fish, you know, whatever the conditions may be, maybe you have a cold front that moves through, maybe it's just the time of the day, whatever it may be. A lot of times in those situations when things are tough, when you can't get bit, the best way to get bit is slowing down, a lot of times with some sort of soft plastic bait. You know, for me, you guys have been around the channel, you know that I love a drop shot. I think a drop shot is not only a great bait when fish are biting, but obviously a really good bait when things are tough. And so that is a bait that to me, that's my fall tube. It's the bait that I pick up when things are really tough and I need to slow down. The reason being is that I can fish it in shallow water, deep water, muddy water, clear water. I can fish it on really heavy pound tests with power shots, and I can fish it on a lot lighter line, which is what I do the majority of the time. So when things are tough, slowing down can really, really help you. Now, on the flip side, something that I've also found that can catch you even more fish is actually when you're catching them. When you are really catching a lot of fish, maybe you get into an area that just has a lot of fish in it. I have found that, you know, for me personally, sometimes I like to catch fish on fast moving baits in an area, and then I'm like, all right, time to move on to the next area so that I can find another one of these. Sometimes I want to find another productive area. And to me, a lot of times it makes sense to hit, if I can hit 4, 5, 6 different schools like that throughout the day, man, you're going to be catching a lot of fish. That does work out sometimes, but the old saying is, you know, you don't leave fish to find fish, really holds true. And to me, if you get around fish that are biting, and say you go through an area, maybe you're catching them on whatever bait, maybe a fast moving bait, a chatter bait, a jerk bait, a top water, and you catch them and then you kind of stop catching them and you kind of fish through that general area, I highly suggest turning the boat around and fishing something really slow. Because one of the biggest things that, you know, using live, you know, sonar like the Mega Live has taught me is that there are so many fish in these areas at times that, one, you're never going to catch all these fish, and two, if you go through and you kind of catch a group of fish that are biting a certain lure, a lot of times going back through with something a lot slower, you can catch equally as many fish, if not even more fish at times. And so to me, this is actually the hardest time to slow down because of what I said earlier. A lot of times I just want to run and gun, hit an area, find the next good area. But especially if you're, if you're a tournament fisherman like myself and you're catching quality fish in an area, just milk that thing. You know, like Don't go try to find new fish. To me, this is hard to do. I know for some of you, like I said in the beginning, it's natural for you, but for me, it's actually pretty hard. And so slowing down when I'm actually really catching them and picking up an area apart can be really the best thing for me. I'm gonna give you a really good example of something that happened to me a number of years ago, and it made a humongous difference. And I've told this story before, but I'm gonna go a little bit more in depth because it blew my mind, and ever since then, I've kind of applied this. But a number of years ago, I was fishing a Bassmaster Open down on the Harris Chain of Lakes, and I had fished. We were there in the February, kind of in that pre-spawn to just getting up on beds time frame of the year, and I had fished all over this lake, well actually several lakes, I think there's 7 on the Harris Chain. I had fished all over the place for 5 days and had caught nothing. The biggest fish I caught was like a 4-pounder, which is a good fish, but it was like the one sole fish. I didn't catch more than 1 fish in any areas at all. Not at all. Except for, well, I take that back. One area, the very first day of this particular practice period, I caught a fish in. And the last day, I happened to go through that area just because I liked the way that it was set up, and I caught another fish. And that was about as good as I had. And so come tournament time, I was like legitimately freaking out, not knowing what to do. But I got into that area where I had 2 bites on 2 days, 5 days apart. And I got into that area, I fished through it with a rattle trap really quick, and I didn't catch anything. And I decided to pull up my trolling motor to go to the next area. And as I pulled up my trolling motor, for whatever reason, I decided to pick up a Texas rig worm. I had a Zoom trick worm, one of the fat ones, the big ones, the Magnum trick worms. Had it tied up. I cast out there as I'm pulling my trolling motor up. And when I go to like reel it up, a fish is swimming off of that thing. And I set the hook and I caught a 4-pounder. And I was like, remember, I had fished for 5 days and I'd caught 1 4-pounder. And now here it's tournament time. I catch a 4-pounder and I am absolutely jacked. I make another cast of that exact same area, bam, 2.5-pounder. And I'm like, what's going on? I make another cast and I actually end up missing a few fish in a row. And that's actually why I don't love EWG hooks so much, but that's a different story for a different day. But anyways, I left that area. I fished that one little section, and I didn't fish through it with that Texas rig. Again, some things come naturally to people. It didn't come naturally to me. I was like, I'm gonna go to the next area and hopefully figure something out. So I go and I fish the rest of the day. I have 2 fish in my boat. I go and fish the rest of the day. I literally did not boat a keeper. With an hour left to go to the day, guess what? I decided to go back to that area where I caught those 2 fish and ended up catching 3 keepers, including a 5-pounder in that one little area. And I ended up having a good day. I was in like 30th place or something after the first day. Now on the second day, you know what I decided to do? I'm just gonna milk this area is what I decided. I'm just gonna stay in this area because I have nothing else going on. Nothing else going on. And so I started just opening up my mind to a small area. And what I did is I fished slow and I fished everything and I fished out. And I actually ended up catching a limit that day fairly early, but I didn't catch many big fish. I had like 7 pounds, 8 pounds, and I was, again, concerned, but I was like, hey, I got a limit. That's pretty good. And again, I just started to, in that exact area, I was fishing some hydrilla that was off the bank, but I noticed that there was a little small pocket that had some lily pads literally within like 30 yards. So I decided to go up into that small pocket, and I was like, maybe these fish that were out here moved up. And I ended up calling out every fish that I caught that day and having a decent bag, moving up in the standings to 25th place. And it was all because I just slowed down in a little area. And there's been multiple times that has happened to me over the years where I just feel like, hey, there's fish in this general area. Let's fish everything here. If there's stumps, fish that. If there's grass, fish that. If there's rocks, there's fish that. Fish it all. And so, guys, I just want to tell you the importance of slowing down because I know it's burned me. And like I said, for some of you guys, you can't fish fast, but you can fish slow. And you're like, yep, I know exactly what you're saying. But then there's guys like me who like to fish quick and like to cover water, and it's hard to slow down at times. So guys, anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Also, don't forget to check out Fin Fishing, and I will see you guys tomorrow.